So where does that leave us? Well, 24 years later, PlantAmnesty is entering the 21st century by doing all that digital stuff, which is necessary, including Yelp, Facebook, Twitter. We've had our website for a while, and we're going to be doing more YouTube classes, public service announcements, etc., and so forth. We also are bearing down on the Shear Madness campaign. We've pretty much licked the tree topping problem in Seattle, though you can never rest. You always have to do some work on it to keep the dragons slain. But the shearing problem is probably worse than when we started 24 years ago. Since the recession, there's been a real rush to the bottom, which is to say anybody with a pickup truck who's out of work decides that they can be a landscaper, and they automatically head for the power head shears. So the next thing we're going to do is work hard to end shearing. And a lot of people have the same reaction they did to ending topping, which is, good luck, you'll never succeed. And who knows if I will or not, but that's not going to stop us. We're also doing Hispanic outreach. The new labor force in America is largely Hispanic, and we want to make sure they have an opportunity to increase their education and therefore their pay, because once they're more educated, they can charge more money because they know how to prune, which is going to even the playing field, and we're all going to be lifted together. We're also doing the Urban Forest Symposium. This is also a difficult thing to put on because it's not for arborists. The Urban Forest Symposium gives critical tree care information to the people who should know, not the people who are interested. And the people who should know include things like city planners, landscape architects, landscapers, builders, construction people. And we have to work very hard to create a program which reaches out to those people and draws them in, which means we have to have interesting speakers on a variety of topics, and it needs to be really cheap, and they need to get continuing education credits, which is the real way to get those people in. And then we can teach them where the tree's roots really are, how not to top a tree, and some other information that they should know that maybe they don't. And the last thing is we're using that as a springboard to create the Tree Canopy Coalition, which is actually a kind of a political action committee. We don't like to call it a lobby group. It's mainly a group to inform the city council and the mayor about how we're feeling regarding laws, enforcement, and funding for the green things. So that's what's new on the PlantAmnesty docket. But what can you do where you live? Well, I've given this a certain amount of thought. And I've also tried to transplant Amnesty. We've opened and closed chapters in 3 different cities, and it doesn't transplant well. The longest we've ever gone is, I think, 5 or 6 years in Portland, Oregon. And they had a great deal of success. They had media, they had a referral service, they had successful events, but it really burned out the people in charge. And it's also very hard to transplant the humor, which seems to have worked very well for PlantAmnesty. It really bombed in, for example, Italy, where to end the senseless torture and mutilation of trees and shrubs is not humorous in any way, shape, or form. But I do have some suggestions for people. One is if you want to change an intractable problem, and that might be tree topping, but it might be something like overplanting or shrub shearing or construction damage, anything that really bugs you, there are things that you can do to fix it. And these are my very best suggestions. First off, make it somebody's job. Volunteers come and go, they burn out, they move on to other things. But if you can make it somebody's job, whether it's somebody in the government, in the park department, or in the ISA, or in any of the Friends of Trees organizations that exist around the country, if you can make it task somebody with ending tree topping or whatever else is bugging you, then you're much more likely to succeed. And then you need to educate and support them, by which I mean fund them. When I started PlantAmnesty, I mainly wanted to end shrub shearing, and I only secondarily wanted to end tree topping. I didn't know much about trees. But the arborists of Seattle who knew the difference tucked me under their wing and taught me all about trees. They could have completely ignored me and said that crazy lady doesn't know what the heck she's doing, and I could have made a lot of mistakes. But instead, I was educated and funded by them. My next recommendation is stay negative. People are always complaining that PlantAmnesty is so negative. You never say anything nice. But nobody pays attention to proper pruning. You can't show proper pruning. It doesn't show up on film, doesn't show up on your in your slideshow or in your book. It just looks like a nice tree or a shrub. You have to have the hall of shame, the slideshow of horrors. And this piques people's curiosity. Maybe you don't want to do exactly what we do, but you could have a booth that you would set up that had trees that were being girdled, trees that were being topped, bad cuts, spike damage, that sort of thing. And that piques people's curiosity. And then you can tell them how to do it the right way after you have gotten their attention. And I also think it's important to set unreasonable goals. Nonprofits eventually exist to support themselves and keep themselves in existence. And you need to remind yourself that you want to go out of business by succeeding. So PlantAmnesty's original mission statement was to end bad pruning in King County in 5 years. And it took us 25, and we only ended tree topping, but still, that's saying something. The next thing is to collect your support group. If you're going to do any sort of outreach, you need to keep a sign-up sheet and get everybody's name, phone number, and email, because eventually you're going to need them to show up at a council meeting, hearing, at a protest, or maybe get some membership so that you can get a way to fund yourself. Another thing is to attach the no tree topping message and the unsustainable shearing message to general gardening information. People will not come out for a slideshow called How to Take Care of Your Tree. They will come out to a slideshow called How to Take Care of Your Yard because they know it isn't working. And then you always want to hit it hard, what not to do and why not to do it. And remember that the most important thing is to create an educated public. Don't go after the professionals that are doing things the wrong way, because as long as there is a demand, it will be fulfilled. As long as customers say, I want my landscape to look right now, professionals will overplant. As long as homeowners request tree topping, there will be somebody to do it for them. So it's very important to keep the focus on the public, not on the perps. Also, it's very important to use the media. As I said before, you get more done using the media than a lifetime of work in the trenches. And there's a variety of ways to get the media attention. It's actually a lot easier than you think. Sometimes just calling up your local horticultural media horticulturist and say, I'd like to come on your show and talk about pruning, or would you write an article about tree topping, works pretty good. There are other things that you can do. Here's a little bit of a list of them. And of course, the best thing you can do is join PlantAmnesty, basically paying us to do the work for you. And this is the good and the bad and the bizarre, the non-educational portion of the slideshow. And here are some of the best of the worst. I call this one, Don't Overload the Boat. This is a balloon tree. Certainly got it out from in front of all the windows. This is the juggling tree. Under control cherry. And just remember, if you hate bad pruning, Your support group has arrived. Be sure to join us in our crusade to end the senseless torture of mutilation of trees and shrubs caused by malpruning. Thank you.